There are a lot of Magic the Gathering cards considered to be generally powerful. Many times players will look at what's playable in CDH, other formats, or just expensive, rare cards, and assume they're inherently strong and should be in their deck. But lots of casual players will wrongly forget about the context that those cards are played in. Many times in any competitive metagame, the existence of certain strategies or cards will necessitate certain cards which might not see any play otherwise, which means what could be a staple in one format might not be very good in another format. That's what I want to talk about here today. Cards I see people play because they are powerful cards, whatever that means. Before I get into the video proper, I want to announce that I am partnering with Dragon Shield to give you some awesome discounts on the best sleeves you can buy. The new Landfall series has some of the best art Magic has to offer on your sleeves. Additionally, Christmas is coming, and these make great gifts for a special Magic player in your life. Using my code TTM, all caps, at checkout secures you a 5% discount, and it supports the channel. Link below if you want to shop around and get some sleeves today. Thanks to Dragon Shield for supporting the channel. Competitive EDH is a very goofy way to play Magic. Don't get me wrong, I love CEDH and I would recommend everyone try it out. But it's got some silliness. Most decks are incredibly fast and threatening, with the ability to win on turn 1 with their best hand. But that almost never happens because everybody knows that everybody can win on turn 1. Because of that, especially if you see a turbo fast combo deck at the table, you're gonna mulligan for all your low mana cost interaction you have. Which leads me to some obvious examples, like Flusterstorm. This is a very powerful card, staple of CEDH. Generally good for stopping early combos, which often involves chaining multiple spells together, and Flusterstorm is difficult to counter because of the way Storm works. But in casual EDH, a player might win with just one big spell, and then paying an extra mana or two isn't too difficult. Additionally, finishers could be creatures, which makes Flusterstorm useless. Another obvious example is Ad Nauseam. This is on the Game Changers list for some strange reason. In CEDH, where the average mana value of a deck is very low, you can use Ad Nauseam to draw a large portion of your deck. And because most competitive commander lists are using combos, it doesn't matter if you go down to 1 life, you're going to use the 30 cards you drew to win the game on the spot. In a casual list, this card is not very good. Dropping down to 1 life without a game-winning combo will usually lead to you just losing. And if you want to spend 5 mana to draw cards, you can do so without losing the game. Adnos can be fun in a life swap deck if you want to do some silly shenanigans, so I hope it loses the game changer status, and then bracket 2 decks are more easily able to play with it. But that was obvious, right? Those were simple, easy examples. Of course, Flusterstorm is bad versus Craterhoof. No duh. How about some more interesting examples? Force of Will is not particularly good in most random casual decks. In Legacy or CEDH, where you might lose to an early combo, who cares about going down 2 cards to counter 1? If you didn't do that, you lose. Additionally, if you are a combo deck, you don't care about throwing away 1 random extra card to protect your spell because it's going to win you the game. But realistically, in casual EDH, when do you need to stop a win attempt? Turn 1, 2, 3? I mean, probably none of those, right? Most likely, you don't need to stop a win until much, much later, which means you have extra time to build up mana, hold up interaction, which costs an extra mana or 2. Additionally, protecting your own win or stopping combos aren't the only reasons to play counterspells. Sometimes you just need to use them as spot removal. In fact, in casual EDH with less definitive game-ending combos, you might want to play spot removal, like counterspells, to stop something that would deal a lot of damage or draw your opponents a lot of cards. It doesn't have to be a game-ending threat. But spot removal is already a losing battle in Commander, because you have 2 extra opponents. So losing 2 cards to remove 1 threat that wasn't even going to necessarily cost you the whole game is really bad card disadvantage. Additionally, the cost for Force of Will is higher in casual Commander. In CEDH, you have a lot of random cantrips and tutors, which are functionally irrelevant when you're trying to resolve your combo. These decks are full of fluff. But in a random casual deck, Your blue cards are real spells. They're meaningful pieces of your game plan, which means pitching one is a much higher cost. Don't get me wrong, I understand the inherent power of free interaction, but we have Pact of Negation, which is not card disadvantage, and Force of Negation, which, although is card disadvantage for the free mode, can be hard cast for less than Force of Will. Yet Force of Will sees more play, according to EDH Rec, than Force of Negation and Pact of Negation. And no, CEDH decks are not skewing that data because most CEDH decks that would play Force of Will are also playing these other spells. Another classic 2-for-1 I sometimes see is Fast Mana, specifically the Moxen that cost a card and Rituals. These are all absolute staples of CEDH decks, because a competitive commander list is able to win after hitting a certain amount of mana. You cast an Adnaz or a combo, or maybe you just want to get a value engine out fast because you think your win attempt would be thwarted. But many times in casual EDH, when you put a ton of resources into one card, like spending multiple cards on a Mox or Rituals to power it out, your threat isn't going to just straight up win the game. And it might not be some value engine which lets you easily regain all of the resources. A lot of times, your threat might be a slower mid-rangey one. And by putting your bomb into play first, you've drawn the ire of the table and forced someone to use removal. But now instead of a 1-for-1, you spent many cards getting your threat out, making that removal much worse for you. Additionally, Chrome Mox has the same issue as Force of Will. Getting rid of an actual spell in your hand is a lot more relevant when your deck isn't full of random fluff. Speaking of card disadvantage, Rituals and Fast Mana that cost you cards can all be mitigated with a well-timed wheel. Opening with a land, Mox Diamond, Soul Ring, and then Wheel of Fortune on turn 1 can be game-winning. Randomly casting a wheel in the mid-game with no synergies and giving your opponents a free 21 cards? Much less game-winning. I've won lots of games off of my opponent's wheels because they just gave me free cards and then I played those cards to win. How about top of library tutors? I love searching my library. I named my whole channel after a tutor. But top of library tutors have a few extra downsides. One, their card disadvantage, since you don't actually add the card to your hand. And the sorcery speed ones are really bad, since you need another card just to put the thing you wanted into your hand. You can't cast it on upkeep like the instant speed ones. Additionally, what are you tutoring for? If you don't have a specific card your deck needs to operate, what is the tutor doing in your list? I get it, flexibility is nice. It's good to find a board wipe when you need it. Vamp Tutor, untap upkeep, cast your damnation. But that's 2 cards you spent just to get and play the board wipe. Could it be better to simply have card advantage in your list? I mean, in the long run, probably, right? This gives you more value over the course of the game, and if you just run a reasonable number of interaction, your card draw should get you what you need because you're not looking for any specific piece. In Casual Commander, games are slow and long and grindy, and in a long, grindy game, value is king. If your one card isn't going to outright win, but instead be a single piece and a slow, progressive win, then spending a ton of cards to get it into play is a recipe for disaster. You're going to end up on turn 8 hellbent with nothing in play. Another thing I think is important for Casual Commander is flexibility. In most formats, the metagame involves a much smaller amount of cards, and you can skip out on artifact hate or graveyard exiling effects if there's nothing in the meta that calls for that. But in Casual Commander, you can run into all sorts of decks, which means even though Nature's Claim is a more efficient way to remove artifacts and enchantments, a Beast Within might be more useful against the Super Friends deck or any creature-focused list. Or a Bane of Progress because the game goes much longer, so you can afford to spend more mana to remove more things and get more overall value for your cards. What I don't want you to take away from this video is that you should never play any specific card that I've listed. There are reasons to run these cards if you have a specific purpose for them, or your deck is the right fit for it. Instead, I want you to reevaluate why these cards are in your list, why they are considered powerful. I did that and cut Force of Will from my Tawanos list. Not to power the deck down, but to power it up, because I would often have colorless cards in hand, and I could not reliably pay for the alternative cost. So it wound up being 5 mana cancel, which isn't particularly good. So I cut it for a better card in my specific list. Jamming a ton of random cards that players consider strong is a massive pitfall I see all the time. I mean, how many times have you seen someone cast a Brainstorm and then draw all 3 cards that they put on top of their deck right back into their hand? The reason Brainstorm is powerful isn't in their deck, so the card is simply a mediocre cantrip. There are reasons in casual EDH to run just about any card, but maybe double check that those cards are actually good in the context of your list specifically. Lastly, Lee Aries asks, what is a deck building limitation you've flirted with but never actually committed to? I think like Flying Men is my answer. There's a cool commander from Aether Drift that I like for Flying Men. I'm blanking on the name now, it'll be on screen. This, like mono blue aggro, is an idea that I've kind of really wanted to do, some sort of tempo-y, aggro-y thing, but I've just never committed to it. It is a neat idea for a deck. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you want to ask questions like that, get access to the Discord, deck reviews, signed cards, or be in the credits like this, check out the Patreon link below. Thanks for watching.